Ambassador stood in the observation deck of the station and looked down at Earth. His body was made of hard crystal that reflected light in ways that humans found unsettling. His mind worked in ways that were even more alien to humanity. Numbers, calculations, efficiency. These were the things that filled his thoughts as he studied the blue world below. For 3 years, the research teams had gathered data about Earth. They had watched how humans lived, how they fought, how they died. The reports were clear. Earth was a harsh world. Disease killed millions. Predators hunted in the dark. Humans killed each other in wars that seemed pointless to the way of thinking. And yet they survived. They built cities. They created art. They protected their young with a fierceness that the found interesting. The council had made their decision during the last grand meeting. The vote was unanimous. Earth would become a colony. The resources of the planet were valuable. The location was strategic. The human population was a problem that needed solving. They would relocate the humans or remove them entirely. The council did not think this was cruel. It was simple practicality. Resources had to be used. Inefficiency had to be eliminated. This was the way. Had worked with hundreds of conquered species. He knew exactly how this would go. The humans would negotiate. They would offer things in exchange for their lives. They would try to show value. In the end, they would accept relocation or extinction because they had no choice. This was how it always happened. Below on Earth, in a research facility built into the mountains, Dr. Hayes sat at her desk and read a message that made her blood cold. She had been intercepting communications for months, always careful, always hidden. But this message was different. This message was official. This message gave dates and numbers and final decisions. Waza, who had spent 20 years studying alien species. She understood how they thought, how they made choices, how they valued different things. She had lived through other conflicts on Earth. She had lost her husband in one of them. She had raised her daughter Emma through the fear of those times. She understood what it meant to face extinction. She read the message again. 6 months. That was how long Earth had before the colony ships arrived. The Council expected no serious resistance. Humans were short-lived creatures who valued safety above all else. They did not understand that sometimes humans valued other things more than safety. Called in her research partner, Dr. Foster, was young, brilliant, and angry. He had been born on Earth and had never left the planet until joining the research team. He did not have the distance that others possessed. He could not look at Earth as a resource to be managed. It was his home. When showed him the message, his face went white. Then it went red. He stood up and walked to the window and looked out at the colony gardens. His sister worked there. His friends lived in the residential district. His entire world was out there. "What do we do?" asked. Did not answer immediately. She was thinking about her husband. She was thinking about the choice he had made when faced with invasion. He had chosen to fight. He had chosen to make the invaders pay a price for taking Earth. He had died doing it, but he had died as a human, not as a slave. "We tell Colonel Carter," said finally, "and then we prepare to show the something they do not expect." Colonel David Carter commanded the military force on Earth. There were only 200 soldiers under his command. They had millions. This was not an even fight by any standard measurement. But Colonel Carter had learned something during his 30 years of military service. Sometimes, the strongest opponent could be defeated if they were surprised. Sometimes, efficiency and calculation could be beaten by something less logical, something called determination. The colonel listened to his information in his office. Around them, the base continued its normal operations. Soldiers trained. Scientists worked. Families slept in their quarters. None of them knew what was coming. "How many people know?" Carter asked. "Just the 3 of us," said. "But we need to tell the people. They have a right to know." "If we tell them, panic will follow," said. "People will try to run. They will try to hide. Some will try to surrender before the fighting even starts." Nodded. She had already thought about this. She had already accepted that what she was about to do would cause pain, but she had also accepted something else. Some things were worth fighting for. Some things were worth dying for. We tell them the truth, said. We tell them that we have 6 months. We tell them that the will not negotiate, that relocation means leaving Earth forever. And we tell them that there is another option. We can stand. We can fight. We can make Earth too expensive to take. Colonel Carter leaned back in his chair. His weathered face showed the weight of command. He had fought many battles. He had lost friends and soldiers and people he cared about. He had seen the cost of war up close. But he also knew what surrender meant. He knew what it meant to lose the ability to choose your own future. It will be a slaughter, Carter said. We have no air support, no space fleet, no way to match their technology. We will lose. Yes, said. Probably we will lose, but we will lose while fighting. We will lose while defending what we value. That is not the same as losing while running away. Something in the way spoke reached the colonel. He thought about the soldiers under his command. They had volunteered to defend Earth. They had taken an oath to protect the people. Maybe now was the time to actually do that job. How long do we have? Carter asked. 6 months, said. Maybe less. The message says colony ships will arrive. We do not know the exact date. Then we have 6 months to prepare, Carter said. He stood up. We will do this. But understand this. People will die, not just soldiers. Civilians will die too. Children will die. When you tell people about this, you are asking them to accept that. Looked at her hands. She was thinking about Emma, about her daughter who had lived her entire life on Earth. She was thinking about all the other daughters on the planet, all the other sons, all the other people who had the right to live in the world they were born to. I know, said, but they deserve the choice. The will not give them any choice, but we can. We can at least give them the choice to stand with us or to try to escape or to surrender, but we do not have to accept extinction without fighting back. Outside, the sun was setting over the colony. The sky turned red and orange and purple. It was a beautiful sight. Had seen that sunset 10,000 times during her years on Earth. She did not know if she would see it again, but at least now she would fight to see it one more time. Colonel Carter and Foster began to plan. They had 6 months to prepare for a war they could not win, but they were going to make that war as costly as possible. They were going to show that taking Earth would cost them more than any resource they could possibly gain from it. The Council, watching from their safe station in orbit, did not expect this resistance. They did not believe that humans would actually fight. They believed in calculations and numbers and efficiency. They had no category in their thinking for humans who chose to fight even when victory was impossible. But on Earth, below the watching eyes of the alien empire, humans were already beginning to understand something. They understood that sometimes you do not fight because you can win. Sometimes you fight because the alternative is unacceptable. Sometimes you fight simply because you are human, and that means something. 4 months passed. Colonel Carter worked without rest. He moved through the colony with a single purpose. Every soldier received advanced training. Every civilian who wanted to learn combat received instruction. The colony's resources were converted into defense systems. Weapons were manufactured or modified. The mountain tunnels were prepared as fallback positions. The colonel gathered his team in the secure bunker below the research facility. 20 soldiers stood at attention. 12 scientists who understood how to make weapons stood against the wall. The civilian population who had chosen to stay and fight filled the rest of the space. There were families with children. There were old people who had lived on Earth their entire lives. There were young people who had never known combat. Sarah Mitchell, a communications specialist, had volunteered to run the broadcast center. She was thin and quiet, but when she spoke, people listened. She had been working to prepare the message that would be sent to the fleet when it arrived. Robert, an engineer, had modified every defensive system the colony possessed. He had taken old equipment and made it work harder than it was ever supposed to work. Hayes looked at the faces of her people. She knew many of them. She had worked with them for years. Some of them had families. Some of them had told her they would not come to this meeting. Some of them had decided that surrender was better than death. She could not judge them. She could only respect the choice. "We have 5 weeks," said, "maybe less. The fleet is on its way. Our data shows 3 capital ships and perhaps 20 smaller vessels. They will not expect serious resistance. They will expect negotiation. They will expect that we will try to bargain for our lives." Colonel Carter stepped forward. His uniform was old, worn from years of service. His face showed the weight of what he was asking these people to do. "Here is what we know," Carter said. "They have superior weapons, they have better armor, they have numbers on their side. We cannot win this fight by traditional military standards. We will not beat them in open combat, but we can do something else. We can make them bleed. We can cost them. We can show them that taking Earth will require extermination, not occupation. And we can hope that when they understand the cost, they will decide that Earth is not worth it." One of the soldiers raised his hand. "Sir, what are our chances? Tell us the truth." Colonel Carter looked at the young man. His name was James Murphy. He had been a security guard before joining the military. He had a wife and 1 child. "Our chances of surviving this are small," Carter said. "Our chances of winning are even smaller. Our chances of dying are very high. That is the truth. If you want to leave this bunker and try to reach the evacuation zone, no one will stop you. But if you stay knowing that this will probably kill you." Sarah Mitchell spoke from the back. "But if we do not fight, they will take our world anyway. We can run and hide, but they will find us. We can surrender and live as slaves or refugees. Or we can stand here and tell them that this is our home, and they cannot take it without paying a price that makes it not worth the cost." Listen to the young people around her agree with Sarah's words. She thought about her husband again. He had made a similar choice. He had chosen to stand rather than run. He had paid the final price for that choice. But Emma, his daughter, had lived in a world where her father had died as a fighter, not a slave. Maybe that meant something. Maybe that was worth the cost. "We will prepare the message now," said to Sarah. "We need them to know that we understand what is coming. We need them to know that we will fight. But more than that, we need them to understand why." In the communications room, Sarah prepared a broadcast message. Worked with her, choosing words carefully. The message had to be strong. It had to be clear. It had to show that humans were not going to behave the way they expected. "I am Hayes, representing the human colony on Earth," the message began. "Your fleet is coming to our world. Your council has decided that we are not worthy of negotiation, that we are simply a resource to be managed or removed. We are here to tell you that you are wrong." The message explained what would happen if the ships attempted to land. It did not promise victory. It promised only resistance. It promised casualties. It promised that they would have to kill every human on this planet to take what they wanted. It promised that Earth would cost them dearly. When the message was ready, Sarah broadcast it on all frequencies. She broadcast it to the fleet and the station and any ship within range. The response came back within hours. Ambassador requested a meeting. He wanted to understand what the humans thought they were doing. He wanted to negotiate, even if his council had ordered relocation. Agreed to the meeting. She traveled to the neutral zone of the space station with Colonel Carter beside her. Emma waited in the observation room, watching her mother walk into what could be a trap, had explained to her daughter what was happening. Emma was old enough to understand. She was strong enough to face it. In the conference room, and faced each other across a table of polished metal. The ambassador was taller than she expected. His body caught light and reflected it back in strange patterns. His eyes were clear and intelligent and completely without mercy. "You are making a mistake," said. "Your species cannot defeat the military. This is a mathematical fact. Therefore, your resistance is irrational." "Perhaps," said, "but we are not resisting because we think we can win. We are resisting because we are human." She began to speak about human history. She spoke of wars where smaller forces had chosen to fight against impossible odds. She spoke of civilizations that refused to surrender even when survival was impossible. She spoke of mothers who protected their children until their last breath. She spoke of the idea that some things were worth more than life itself. Listened. His crystalline mind tried to process information that did not fit into his equations. The humans were saying that they would choose death over life if it meant maintaining their freedom. This was not rational by standards, but perhaps it was rational by human standards. "If we attack," said slowly, "you will die. Your species will be eliminated from this world." "Yes," said, "that is possible, but we will die as fighters, as people who chose our own fate instead of accepting yours. That is something. That is worth something." The meeting was over. He had gathered the information he needed. He had to report to the council. The humans were going to fight. The council would have to make a new calculation. In the observation room, Emma watched her mother walk out of the conference room. She saw his hands shaking slightly. She saw the strain in her mother's face, but she also saw something else. She saw strength. She saw someone who had made a choice and was ready to live with it or die with it. And Emma did not speak on the journey back to Earth. They did not need to. They both understood what was coming. They both understood that the time for preparation was ending. The time for standing their ground had arrived. Colonel Carter sent out the final orders. Every soldier was given their position. Every civilian was told where to go if fighting started. Every person who had chosen to stay understood that this was the moment they had been preparing for. Sarah Mitchell made another broadcast. This one was not for the. This one was for all of humanity. She told them what was coming. She told them that some of their people had chosen to fight. She asked them to remember that choice. She asked them to tell their children about the day humans stood together against the darkness. In the bunker beneath the colony held her daughter close. In the military barracks, Colonel Carter cleaned his weapon and checked it a dozen times. In the communications room, Sarah monitored the skis. All around Earth, humans prepared to defend their world. They did not know if they would survive. They did not know if their resistance would matter. But they knew that they were about to show the galaxy something it had never seen before. They were about to show the price of taking the home of a species that valued freedom more than safety, that valued choice more than survival, that valued standing and fighting more than running away and living as slaves. The fleet was coming, and humanity was ready to pay whatever price was needed to make the invaders understand what standing here and fighting meant. The fleet arrived on a clear morning. The sky filled with ships so large that they blotted out the sun. 3 capital ships positioned themselves in high orbit. 20 smaller combat vessels took defensive positions. The Council had sent enough force to occupy a planet, not just to relocate a population. Was in command of the landing operation. He had been chosen because he understood humans better than most. He understood their capacity for irrationality, but he still expected them to make the logical choice. They would retreat. They would negotiate. They would accept relocation. The first wave of landing craft descended toward the colony. They carried troops in sealed armor with weapons designed to incapacitate rather than kill. They wanted Earth intact. They wanted the colony infrastructure undamaged. They wanted a clean occupation. What they did not expect was for the human forces to attack before the landing craft even touched the ground. Foster led the first strike team. He and 12 other soldiers moved through the underground tunnels that ran beneath the colony. They had spent weeks preparing this route. They knew every turn, every passage, every place where they could strike and disappear. When the landing craft touched down, his team emerged from hidden positions. They fired on the troops unloading from the ships. The weapons were not powerful, not by standards, but they were effective. 3 soldiers went down immediately. The troops scattered, calling for support, trying to establish a perimeter. But's team was already moving. They fell back into the tunnels. The forces called down for air support. The sky around the colony filled with weapons fire. His team ran through passages they had memorized perfectly. They led the enemy through the colony without allowing them to secure a single position. Colonel Carter watched from the main bunker as the battle unfolded. He sent out orders constantly. Move teams to position 7. Create a distraction at the water processing plant. Keep the enemy moving. Do not let them dig in. Do not let them establish supply lines. Sarah Mitchell broadcast every moment of the fighting. She named every casualty on both sides. She made certain the fleet in orbit could hear her. She wanted them to understand that Earth was not being taken without cost. 3 soldiers have been confirmed killed, Sarah said into the broadcast system. 7 human soldiers are wounded. We continue to resist. We will not surrender. Hour after hour, the battle continued. They expected to overwhelm the human resistance in hours. Instead, they found themselves in a grinding fight against an enemy that refused to break. Every position the humans held was abandoned before they could fully surround it. Every time they thought they had victory in hand, humans appeared from unexpected directions and attacked their supply lines. Foster was in constant motion. He coordinated with other strike teams, moving quickly from position to position. His sister had been in the residential district when the attack came. His friends had either chosen to fight or tried to flee. He did not allow himself to think about what had happened to them. He focused on the next attack, the next distraction, the next way to make the bleed. Robert worked in an underground position. He had rigged explosive devices throughout the colony. When troops tried to move through certain areas, they would trigger demolitions. The explosions did not always kill, but they damaged equipment and forced them to slow down. They forced the invaders to send scouts ahead. They forced them to be careful. And in warfare, forcing your enemy to be careful is a way of saving lives, even if it is just a small way. The battle continued through the first day and into the second. They brought in more troops. They established a stronger perimeter. They called down strikes from the ships in orbit. But every single time they seemed about to secure total victory, human forces would hit them from an unexpected angle. Hayes coordinated medical response from the bunker. She helped patch up wounded soldiers so they could return to fighting. She watched friends die. She received reports that the residential district was burning. She received word that civilian casualties were mounting. But she did not stop. She did not allow herself to surrender, and she did not allow others to surrender either. On the third day, a message came from. He requested a meeting with. He wanted to understand what the humans thought they were accomplishing. Agreed, but this time she did not travel to the space station. Instead, they met in a neutral location at the edge of the contested area, arrived with a single guard, arrived with Colonel Carter and Foster. The commander looked at them with something that might have been respect or might have been calculation. His battle reports showed something that should not have been possible. The human forces were smaller. They had inferior weapons. They should have been routed in the first hours. Instead, they had been fighting for 3 days. The casualty count was approaching 10%. That was unprecedented. "You have accomplished nothing," said. "You are still going to lose. The only difference is that more of your people will die before the end comes." "We know," said, "but every soldier you lose here is a soldier you cannot use somewhere else. Every ship you send to occupy Earth is a ship you cannot use to expand into other territories. You are right that we will lose, but we are making you pay for our loss. And somewhere in your calculations, that has to matter. Process this statement." He looked at Colonel Carter, at Foster, at the human leaders who continued to resist even as they acknowledged that resistance was hopeless. "Why do you do this?" asked. "Why do you continue to fight when victory is impossible?" Looked at the commander. She thought about her husband. She thought about Emma waiting in the bunker. She thought about all the humans who had chosen to stay and fight instead of surrender. "Because some things matter more than survival," said. "For my people, home matters more than safety. Freedom matters more than life. The ability to choose our own future matters more than continuing to exist under someone else's control. You will take Earth eventually, but you will not be able to say you took it without resistance. You will not be able to say that humans simply accepted occupation. We choose to fight. That choice is everything. The meeting lasted only minutes, returned to his forces. The battle resumed, but something had changed in the calculation. They had learned to respect their enemy. The humans were no longer simply a resource to be managed. They had become something more dangerous. They had become a people who valued freedom more than life. Over the next 2 weeks, the fighting continued. The humans lost ground. They lost positions. They lost soldiers, but they continued to inflict casualties on the forces. They continued to resist. They continued to fight. Foster was killed on the 15th day. He died defending the water processing plant, giving his team time to escape. 50 humans died that same day, but 30 soldiers died as well. Received the news that was dead while she was treating wounded soldiers. She allowed herself a moment of grief. Then she returned to work. Sarah continued her broadcasts. She named every loss. She recorded every casualty. She made certain that the galaxy knew that humans had stood and fought. Whatever happened in the end, whatever the final outcome was, the fact would remain that humans had chosen resistance over surrender. And in the calculations of the Council, orbiting above in their ships, the equation began to shift. Taking Earth would cost more than the resources were worth. The humans would have to be eliminated, and they were beginning to understand that the price of that elimination might be higher than any conquest in their history. On the 28th day of fighting, the violence finally began to slow. Not because one side was winning, but because both sides were exhausted. They had taken severe losses. The humans had been pushed back to a small defensive perimeter around the main colony bunker. The end seemed to be approaching. Colonel Carter stood in the bunker and looked at his remaining forces. Of the 200 soldiers he had commanded at the start, only 83 remained alive and capable of fighting. The others were dead or too wounded to continue. The civilian population had been reduced by half. The colony itself was burning in multiple locations. Moved through the bunker checking on the wounded. Emma helped her, bringing water to soldiers who were not expected to survive much longer. The girl had aged years in the past month. She had seen things that no young person should see, but she had not broken. She had not surrendered. She had simply continued to do what needed to be done. Sarah Mitchell was still broadcasting. Her equipment was damaged, and she had to jury-rig new components, but her voice still went out to every ship in orbit. She named the dead. She recorded the cost. She made certain that history would know what had happened here. Then unexpectedly the bombardment stopped. The ships went silent. No more weapons fire. No more invasion forces, just silence. Colonel Carter received a message. Ambassador was requesting a final meeting. He was offering to negotiate. This time he was coming alone. Prepared herself to meet with one final time. She dressed carefully. She wanted to look like someone who had chosen to stand and fight, not someone who had been beaten into submission. Emma hugged her mother before she left. Neither of them said what they were both thinking. This might be the last time they would see each other. The meeting took place in the same neutral location as before. Arrived without guards or weapons. He looked at with something that the human woman could not quite read. "You have proven something," said without preamble. "Something that was not in our calculations. The Council did not believe you would fight this way. We did not believe you would choose death over surrender." "We did," said, "and we will continue to choose it." "Yes," said, "I believe you. I have watched your soldiers. I have reviewed the battle data. Your people continue to fight even when victory is impossible. This is not logical, but it is something we have encountered nowhere else in the galaxy. They have conquered 1,000 worlds. Every species we have faced eventually surrendered or was eliminated. But you fight differently. You fight as if survival is not the most important thing." Nodded, she was listening, trying to understand what was saying. The Council has made a new decision, continued. We still believe Earth is valuable. We still believe it is a world worth controlling. But we have come to understand that controlling Earth will cost more than we can afford to spend. An occupation would require a permanent military force. Pacification would require constant vigilance. Your people have shown that they will never truly surrender. They will continue to resist, generation after generation, until they drive us away or die trying. So you are leaving? Asked. She did not let herself hope. She did not allow herself to believe this was possible. No, said. We are proposing something different. The Council offers alliance, not occupation. Earth will remain sovereign, your people will remain free, but you will join the collective. You will agree to mutual defense and cooperation in scientific advancement. You will share your knowledge and we will share ours. In exchange, your world will be protected by military power. You will have a place in the galactic community. Was silent for a long moment. She was trying to process what was saying. The fighting could end. The dying could stop. Earth could survive. Why, she asked, why would the Council make this offer? Because, said, we have learned something. We have learned that there are things more valuable than occupation. We have learned that respect matters. We have learned that a species willing to pay any price for their freedom is worth having as an ally rather than trying to conquer them. The cost of conquest would be too high, but the benefit of alliance would be great. Your people are exceptional. We want you with us, not against us. Thought about Foster, dead in the debris of the water processing plant. She thought about the 50 soldiers and civilians who had been killed that same day. She thought about all the deaths, all the suffering, all the loss. But she also thought about Emma. She thought about her daughter getting to grow up on Earth, getting to live free, getting to choose her own future. I need to consult with my people, said, but I believe we can accept these terms. When returned to the bunker, she gathered Colonel Carter, Sarah Mitchell, and the other survivors. She told them what had offered. She told them that the fighting could end. The response was not celebration. It was exhaustion. These people had endured so much that peace seemed almost unreal. But they understood what was saying. They understood that they had achieved something remarkable. They had forced to see them as something more than resources to be managed. They had earned respect through refusing to surrender. Sarah Mitchell made one final broadcast before the armistice began. People of Earth, she said, the fighting is ending. The forces have agreed to terms. Earth will remain our world. We will remain free. We have paid a terrible price for this freedom. Many of our people have died, many more have been wounded, but we have also proven something. We have proven that humans will fight for what they believe in. We have proven that we value freedom more than safety. We have proven that we are worth respecting. Colonel Carter received the news that the remaining forces would withdraw. He felt the weight of command finally lifting from his shoulders. He had brought as many of his people through this conflict as he could. Some had been lost, but many had survived. They would have the chance to live free on their world. Emma ran to her mother when returned to the bunker. She held and cried. For the first time since the fighting had started, she allowed herself to break down, to acknowledge all the fear and pain and loss that she had held back. Held her daughter and looked around at the surviving humans. They had fought against impossible odds. They had lost friends and family, but they had stood. They had refused to surrender. They had chosen freedom, and by making that choice, they had changed the equation for the entire galactic system. Submitted his report to the Council. He explained that Earth had proven too costly to conquer. He explained that the humans had proven themselves to be exceptional. He explained that alliance was a better choice than occupation. The Council, looking at the casualty reports, at the cost analysis, at the truth of what had happened on Earth, agreed. The fleet began to move away from Earth. The occupation became a withdrawal. The conquest became an alliance. And in the bunker beneath the scorched colony, humans prepared to begin the long work of rebuilding their world. They had paid a price that would echo through generations. But they had earned the right to do it as a free people. Hayes stood before the combined council of the galactic community. 37 different species were represented in the chamber. Speakers, traders, warriors, philosophers, and merchants all sat watching the human woman who had started a war and negotiated a peace. She had been invited to address the council. The representative had requested it. The other species wanted to understand what had happened on Earth. How had humans, a young species with inferior technology, managed to force the powerful to the negotiating table? How had a small population on a single world changed the behavior of one of the galaxy's most dominant civilizations? Looked at the assembled representatives. Some of them looked at her with interest. Some looked at her with fear. She could see the calculations happening in alien minds. Could this same human determination apply to them? Could their worlds face similar challenges if they attempted conquest? "I am Hayes," she began. "I speak for the people of Earth. I stand here today to tell you what happened on my world. More importantly, I stand here to tell you what it means." She described the arrival of the fleet. She described the choice that humans had made to fight rather than surrender. She described the casualties, the suffering, the loss. She did not hide from the cost. She made it clear that many had died. "The Council believed that taking Earth would be a simple operation," said. "They believed that humans would see their superior military power and would surrender. They believed that we valued our lives more than our freedom. They were wrong." One of the representatives spoke. "But you did lose, did you not? Your world was occupied, your people were killed, you did not achieve victory." "No," said, "we did not achieve military victory, but we achieved something more important. We achieved respect. They came to understand that taking Earth would cost them far more than they were willing to pay. We forced them to recalculate their equation. We forced them to see us as something other than resources to be managed. We forced them to respect us." She placed a data storage device on the presentation surface. Images filled the screens. Human history. From ancient warfare to modern conflicts, the record showed the same pattern again and again. Humans fought against impossible odds. Humans chose death over surrender. Humans made the choice that smaller military strength, when combined with absolute commitment to freedom, could delay or prevent conquest. "My species has spent learning how to refuse surrender," continued. "We have built our civilization on the principle that some things are worth dying for. We have learned through countless wars and conflicts that humans will fight when the alternative is unacceptable. We are not the strongest species in this galaxy. We are not the most advanced technologically. But we are perhaps the most dangerous, because we are willing to pay a price that other species will not pay." An elderly speaker asked, "Are you saying that you attempted to kill soldiers to gain respect?" "I am saying that we defended our world from invasion," replied. "They came to take our home. We fought to prevent that. In the process, we showed them that taking Earth would require them to eliminate an entire species. That understanding changed their calculations. We did not win by defeating them militarily. We won by making clear what the true cost of victory would be." She advanced the presentation. New images appeared, not of war but of human culture, families protecting their children, communities standing together, art and music and literature created in the shadow of danger, the things that humans valued when they were being honest about what mattered most. "The real terror," said, looking directly at the assembled representatives, "is not what humans can do with weapons. It is not our military strength or our technology. The real terror is our capacity to choose sacrifice over safety. The real terror is that we will teach our children to value freedom more than life. The real terror is that you cannot occupy a world where the people would rather die than accept your rule." She let this sink in. She watched the reactions of the alien representatives. She saw understanding in their eyes. She saw fear. "They came to take Earth," continued. "But in fighting them, we showed every species in this galaxy something. We showed that humans will not go quietly. We showed that we will make any conquest of our world so costly that no military power can afford to complete it. And most importantly, we showed that this is the nature of human beings. We are the species that refuses to surrender. We are the species that will stand against the darkness even knowing that we will probably lose." She pointed toward where sat. The ambassador inclined his head slightly, continued. "The council made a choice. They could have continued the occupation. They could have eliminated every human being on Earth. But they understood something. They understood that occupying Earth would never be complete as long as humans remained human. They understood that every generation of humans would have to be taught to accept rule. And they understood that eventually those humans would realize that their ancestors had fought. And then those humans would remember how to fight as well." His voice grew stronger. "So let me be clear about what happened. We did not win through superior force. We did not win through technology. We won because we were willing to fight until every one of us was dead rather than accept occupation. They came to understand that this willingness to fight, this refusal to surrender, was more dangerous to them than any weapon. They came to understand that controlling Earth was not worth what it would cost them in ongoing occupation and resistance." She looked at the assembled representatives again. "Now all of you know the same thing. You all know that Earth is a world where the inhabitants will fight rather than surrender. You all know that invading Earth means casualties that will far exceed any profit from conquest. You all know that humans value their freedom more than their lives. And you all know what that means for your calculations about invading human worlds." And Merchant spoke. "This is a threat, is it not? You are telling us that invading human worlds is not worth the cost." "I am telling you the truth," said. "I am telling you what my people have proven. I am telling you what humans are. We are the species that will fight because some things matter more than survival. We are the species that will die rather than accept control by others. We are the species that will teach our children to do the same. That is not a threat. That is simply a description of what we are." Emma Hayes sat in the observation gallery. She watched her mother speak to the combined council. She listened to her mother tell the galaxy what humans truly were, and she understood that her mother was doing something important. Her mother was changing how the galaxy thought about humanity. "I was told that terror is fear of death," said as she concluded her address. "I was told that terror is what an invader experiences when facing superior military force, but I have come to understand something else. Real terror, the kind that truly stops conquest, is not fear of death at all. Real terror is the knowledge that a species exists that values freedom more than life. Real terror is understanding that occupying such a species will never be complete. Real terror is facing people who will choose to die rather than surrender, and knowing that killing them will not make you the victor. Because even if you kill every single one of them, you will have lost something. You will have lost the opportunity to conquer them. You will have learned that they cannot be conquered, and that knowledge will spread throughout the galaxy." The council chamber was silent, felt the weight of thousands of eyes from dozens of species looking at her. She felt the moment when understanding arrived. She felt the shift in the calculations happening in alien minds. "So when you look at Earth," said, "do not see a world you can take. See a world where the inhabitants have already demonstrated that they will cost you whatever you try to take from them. See a world where every human being has already chosen that freedom is more important than safety. See a world that will never be yours until you understand that some species are not worth conquering." She stepped down from the speaker's platform. She had said what needed to be said. The galactic community would have to decide how to react to what they had learned about humanity. The reaction was not immediate. There was no shouting or debate. The council simply sat in silence, processing the information, recalculating their equations, understanding what humanity had proven on Earth. Later, in a quiet chamber, was approached by representatives from a dozen different species. They all wanted to know the same thing. They wanted to understand how to ally with humanity. They wanted to know how to work with a species that would not surrender, that would not be conquered, that would fight until the bitter end for freedom. Smiled when she answered. She told them the truth. Humans were not looking for dominance or conquest. Humans were looking for recognition and respect. Humans wanted to be treated as equals in the galactic community. Humans wanted the right to choose their own future, and humans were willing to fight, to die, to sacrifice everything to protect that right. By the end of the day, Earth had signed trade agreements with 17 different species. Military alliances had been proposed. Scientific partnerships had been discussed. The little human world that no one had paid attention to before was suddenly important. Not because humans had won a war, but because humans had proven that they would never surrender to one. Emma waited for her mother in the observation gallery as finished the last meeting. When finally emerged, Emma hugged her. She did not say anything. She simply held her mother, understanding in her way what had been accomplished. Thought about her husband then. She thought about all the humans throughout history who had stood and fought when surrender seemed like the logical choice. She thought about all the generations that would come after her, all the humans who would remember what had happened on Earth. She thought about the choice that humans made to value freedom more than safety, to choose standing and fighting over running and hiding, to choose the right to determine their own future over the guarantee of continued existence under someone else's rule. And she understood that this was what being human truly meant. It meant to stand. It meant to fight. It meant to refuse to accept that any force, no matter how powerful, could take away the right to choose your own path. It meant to understand that some things were worth dying for, and that the willingness to die for them was what made you human. The galaxy had learned what humans were. The galaxy had learned what happened when you tried to conquer a species that valued freedom more than life, and the galaxy would never forget.